History doesn't always speak clearly, but in the shadows, it whispers truth. He made us laugh every week as Chandler Bing. But behind the jokes was a man battling demons the world couldn't see. From the heights of fame to the depths of addiction, Matthew Perry's story is one of brilliance, pain, and the fight to help others before it was too late. This is the true cost of fame, and the legacy of a man who lived in the spotlight but died in the shadows. As much as the late Matthew Perry wanted to be a successful actor, he also craved the fame that came along with it. "There was steam coming out of my ears, I wanted to be famous so badly," the actor admitted to the New York Times in 2002. "You want the attention, you want the bucks, and you want the best seat in the restaurant." That desire came true when Perry landed the role of the witty and sarcastic Chandler Bing on Friends in 1994. The part of Chandler leapt off the page, shook my hand, and said, "This is you, man," he told Entertainment Weekly in 1997. The ensemble sitcom, starring Perry alongside Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, and David Schwimmer, couldn't have come at a better time for the Ottawa-raised actor who had previously starred on a string of failed comedies. "I desperately needed the money," he once said. Once he landed Friends, his financial problems were solved. During the first season, the 6 cast members made $22,500 an episode, which grew to $75,000 by season 3 and eventually $1 million per episode in seasons 9 and 10. Along with that came the popularity he dreamed of. "I was on Friends from age 24 to 34. I was in the white-hot flame of fame," he said. "The 6 of us were just everywhere all the time." Despite being the source of so much laughter for tens of millions of viewers, Perry's private life was no laughing matter. Behind the scenes, he was harboring a dark secret. "From an outsider's perspective, it would seem like I had it all," he said. "It was actually a very lonely time for me, because I was suffering from alcoholism." His addiction to alcohol and drugs cost him millions of dollars, months spent in rehab, and even memories from his most famous role. Perry eventually began taking back control of his life and helping other addicts, too. But ultimately, he couldn't survive the looming shadow of addiction. The instant success of the show felt like all Perry had ever wanted. "When it happens, it's kind of like Disneyland for a while," Perry told the New York Times. "For me, it lasted about 8 months, this feeling of I've made it, I'm thrilled, there's no problem in the world. And then you realize that it doesn't accomplish anything, it's certainly not filling any holes in your life." But a dependence on alcohol did become a part of his life. Then after a jet ski accident in 1997, when he was prescribed Vicodin, drugs also entered the picture. "It wasn't my intention to have a problem with it," he said in 2002. "But from the start, I liked how it made me feel, and I wanted to get more." By day, he was cracking jokes as his alter ego Chandler, but outside of work, things started spiraling. That eventually started showing physically when he lost about 20 pounds. "I was out of control and very unhealthy," the actor told People. He first went to rehab in 1997, spending 28 days at a Hazelden Betty Ford facility in Minnesota. But he didn't stay sober for long. In May 2000, he was admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles for pancreatitis, an inflammation of the pancreas from alcohol abuse. The condition can be potentially deadly. Perry was in so deep that even that scare didn't serve as a wake-up call. "Unfortunately, that still wasn't enough to get me to quit drinking," he explained. As a sign of what a low point he reached, he crashed his Porsche into a house the day he was released from the hospital. Fortunately, the home was unoccupied. Though alcohol or drugs weren't in his system that day, it was further proof of how out of control his life was. All the while, Friends ratings were going up, and his paycheck was getting bigger as movie projects, like 1997's Fools Rush In and 2000's The Whole Nine Yards, came along. But nothing seemed to be enough. "I tried to talk to him," Friends co-star LeBlanc, who played Joey Tribbiani, told People. "There wasn't a response. It's such a personal struggle, they need to bottom out on their own." As difficult as it was, his co-stars simply stood aside, ready to support him. After all, it was all they could do. Hard doesn't even begin to describe it. Kudrow, who played Phoebe Buffay, told the New York Times of the 2000 to 2001 season. When Matthew was sick, it was not fun. We were just hopelessly standing on the sidelines. We were hurting a lot. Matthew is one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. He's charming and hilarious. Most of our hard laughs came from Matthew. Aniston, who played Rachel Green, described him as one of the most sensitive people I've ever met, more than most girls I know. His feelings get hurt. He cares what people think. Friends co-creator and executive producer Marta Kaufman told People, "It was terrifying, watching someone you care about in so much pain." Although Perry knew they all cared, the efforts were lost on him. "I wasn't ready to hear it," he admitted. "You can't tell anyone to get sober. It has to come from you." He did have control of one thing. "I had this odd rule that I would never drink on a set," Perry told the New York Times. But the effects of his addictions still showed. "I went to work in extreme cases of hangovers. It's so horrible to feel that way and have to work and be funny on top of that. I don't remember 3 years of it," Perry admitted about filming Friends during his uncontrolled addiction. "I was a little out of it at the time, somewhere between seasons 3 and 6. Somehow, he managed to channel even more energy into work when he did double duty in February 2001, filming both Friends and the movie Serving Sarah. He commuted between sets in Los Angeles and Dallas to play his parts. Around this time, he was drinking vodka by the quart. "I was sleepy and shaking at work," he said. But on February 23, 2001, something shifted. "I can't describe it, because bigger things were taking place that I can't put into words," he said. That day, he was in his Dallas hotel room and decided to call his parents for help. "I didn't get sober because I felt like it," he told the New York Times. "I got sober because I was worried I was going to die the next day." Even though Friends was still in production and there were 13 days of shooting left on the movie, Perry took control. He flew back to California, and his parents took him to another rehab center. "It was scary. I didn't want to die," he said. "But I'm grateful for how bad it got. It only made me more adamant about trying to get better." After 2.5 months, he re-emerged and refocused. The movie production had been halted, but he was now able to go back and finished it. He also returned to his second home on the set of Friends. "I learned that a happy life is possible without alcohol or drugs," he said of his new outlook. "I remember going up to him the first episode of the last season and saying, 'I'm so happy you're back,'" Kaufman said of his return. "I hadn't realized how much he hadn't been there." Being on Friends from 1994 to 2004 amplified the challenges of going through such a difficult addiction. "I'm a pretty private person, but I was on a TV show that 30 million people were watching, so people knew. It was so public what was happening to me," he told The Hollywood Reporter. "You can't have a drug problem for 30 years and expect to solve it in 28 days. In 2011, he went back into rehab as part of his continuing recovery. "I'm making plans to go away for a month to focus on my sobriety and to continue my life in recovery," he said in a statement. But his trademark humor also came out. "Please enjoy making fun of me on the World Wide Web." Not long after that, he decided to pay it forward by opening up the 5,500 square foot Perry house in Malibu as a sober living facility for men in 2013. While he sold his old home in 2015, he continued helping other people who were struggling with addiction. He even channeled his experiences into writing a stage play called The End of Longing, which debuted in London in 2016. "It's personal, but it's an exaggerated form of me. Jack, the character I play, is a much different drunk than I was," he told Variety. "It flew out of me, this play. I finished it in about 10 days. I guess I had something to say." While health problems still affected him, in 2018, he was hospitalized for 5 months and nearly died from an exploded colon, and he still got targeted for disheveled appearances. Overall, Perry came a long way since the darkest days during Friends. "You don't recover from what I went through overnight," he told People. "It's a day-to-day process. I've had a lot of ups and downs in my life. I learned a lot from my failures," said Perry, who won the 2015 Phoenix Rising Award for helping others struggling with addiction. "But the best thing about me is that if an alcoholic comes up to me and says, 'Will you help me stop drinking?' I will say, 'Yes, I know how to do that.'" And that's the legacy he hoped to leave. "When I die, I'd like friends to be listed behind helping people," he said in 2013. Despite his great effort to get and stay sober, Perry couldn't always help himself. In fall 2023, he slipped back into his addictive behavior. On October 28, he died from an accidental ketamine overdose at his Los Angeles home. He was 54. The Friends star had been receiving ketamine infusion therapy to treat depression and anxiety, but an autopsy revealed the amount in his system was abnormally high. Seeking to find the source of the drug that killed him, authorities launched an investigation in May 2024. 3 months later, law enforcement officials announced Perry was abusing ketamine in the weeks before his death. When he asked doctors for a higher dose of ketamine during therapy, they turned him down. Authorities allege the actor found a new source in 2 Southern California doctors, then 2 drug dealers. All 4 people and Perry's former assistant are now facing drug trafficking charges. 3 of them have pleaded guilty, though none have been convicted of the crimes. As Matthew Perry's ketamine addiction grew, he wanted more, and he wanted it faster and cheaper, Drug Enforcement Administrator Leader and Milgram said Thursday at a press conference. That is how he ended up buying from street dealers who sold the ketamine that ultimately led to his death. In doing so, he followed the arc that we have tragically seen with many others whose substance use disorder begins in a doctor's office and ends in the street. In the end, the only extraordinary thing about Matthew Perry's addiction was his willingness to share his experiences in the hopes it would benefit others. If someone asks for help, I'll say yes, because I know how to do that. This is Shadow Time History, where we explore the lives behind the legends and the truths they leave behind. The past leaves traces in the dark. We follow them at Shadow Time History.